Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever is just days away from opening, and we have some updated box office forecast tracking numbers to look at. And how's Black Adam doing, speaking of big superhero films? Has the audience actually shown up to make this movie a financially viable piece for Warner Brothers Discovery? Let's get into it. Renegade Online. Well, welcome back, folks. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's great to see everybody out there once again. And if you were like one of the many folks watching this video that are not yet subscribed to this channel, please do take a moment to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment below the video before you head out the door today. YouTube loves those comments, and we love hearing the comments from you folks out there watching. Let's get right into this. We've got Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever due out in just a matter of a few days here as I'm recording this. We've got Black Adam still rolling through the box office, also claiming the third weekend in a row since its opening as being #1 in the domestic box office. Great thing, but does it actually mean anything in terms of the financials as far as positive return on investment for Warner Brothers? Let's start with Black Adam. From the numbers, weekend actuals, Black Adam makes it 3 in a row. As expected, Black Adam comfortably held onto the top spot at the box office over the weekend, declining a respectable 33% to $18.27 million, according to Warner Brothers. To be fair, there really hasn't been a whole lot since 2019's Shazam from DC's Extended Universe and from Warner Brothers Studios related to that franchise IP. In fact, what they have had come out in the interim has largely been, with the exception of The Batman earlier this year, thrown straight onto streaming, or at least day and date release with streaming and theaters, and that has hampered the box office. Then again, one has to wonder if they just maybe completely forgot about The Batman earlier this year, which stands currently at $767 million worldwide, a figure that, quite frankly, Black Adam is in a very poor position to overtake. Matter of fact, at this point, it's going to be a struggle for Black Adam to get to that $400 million mark, much more than it should be. Not to say that it won't, but it's going to get there a lot more slowly and a lot more precariously than Warner Brothers otherwise probably would have hoped for. If this movie does finish between $400 and $450 million globally, as I've been thinking it will after its opening weekend, that means that Warner Brothers may at least be able to recover their costs of production. And again, this film stands currently at $200 million in that category. It doesn't then cover the marketing expenses that Warner Brothers would have spent to actually put this film into theaters and advertise it to prospective audiences. Now, David Zaslav, in the recent Warner Brothers earnings call that we covered here on Valiant Renegade Live just a few days ago, was bragging about the fact that they were able to lever their massive network of different linear broadcast and streaming devices and channels, things like HBO Max, as well as the dozens of different television stations and cable stations that Warner Brothers has under its banner, to help bring down some of the aggregate marketing costs for this film. But at the end of the day, this is a movie that still would usually command somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100 million in a marketing spend, which is why I initially said that this movie really needs to get to around $600 million worldwide after you take out the international and domestic rentals from that, the pieces that the theaters keep and that go to things like taxes in international countries, in order for Warner Brothers to get back a net of $300 million to cover its costs and hopefully get into a profit territory. At this point, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And even just a couple of weeks ago, we saw some rumors that indeed this film was going to get a China release date. Matter of fact, November 11th, this coming weekend. But in the last 24 hours or so, we have seen rumors come in from other places like Giant Freaking Robot, which might suggest otherwise. Rumor has it that Black Adam may be banned in China because of Pierce Brosnan supporting the Dalai Lama. This was just from the last day or so from Giant Freaking Robot. And this report has been circulating on the internet. So seemingly after it was reported that they passed the Chinese censorship tests and got a release date, now there are other reports suggesting that either that didn't happen or something has changed. And if this turns out to be accurate and Black Adam indeed will not see a Chinese release date, that's a big market for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, considering the success of the Fast and the Furious franchise over there in that Pacific Rim market. But then again, Chinese box offices only return about 25% or so of the gross take back to the American distributor. In other words, if Black Adam even were to release in China and score about $100 million there, that means only about $25 million of it would make it back to Warner Brothers. And while that would certainly help cushion the blow of the massive production budget and the subsequent marketing budget, it still is probably not going to be enough to get this movie into profitability. And that's a shame, as fans seem to have really enjoyed it. But just like we talked about with Andor, the new Star Wars show on Disney+, there just simply doesn't seem to be enough of those fans that are enjoying it to make it a worthy financial endeavor. If we look at where Black Adam stands right now at $319 million, and we look at the breakdown between domestic and international, what we come up with is a figure of about $153.8 million that has actually made it back home of that total figure to Warner Brothers Studios. That's still roughly $50 million shy of just the production budget itself. Now, certainly this movie is not finished its run. As I said, I still think it's probably going to work its way up to about $400 million, but that's getting even more precarious by the day. Even with a good second or third weekend, with a 33% drop in the most recent weekend, the movie simply started at too low of a figure to have a solid chance of reaching its profitability mark of around $600 million. So that's what we're looking at right now with Black Adam. Basically, it's going to wind up being a financial fail for Warner Brothers at the box office, no matter how you slice this, unless something radical changes here in just the next few days, because there's another huge movie about to drop, and that's one that we really want to talk about, and that's Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2. Now, just about 3 weeks ago, I did a video with the initial tracking for Wakanda Forever, and you can see here from Box Office Pro, based on the first few days of pre-sales for tickets, they were tracking a $180+ million domestic, that's US and Canada, box office debut. And if we want to look at the more specific numbers right here, back on October 14th, they were tracking $180 to $225 million for its opening weekend, with a total domestic run assumption at that point of $445 million to $590 million. Now, that would be a massive number for a movie like this, and it was frankly something, when I saw this, and I discussed it in the video a few weeks ago, I just don't believe. I didn't believe it then, and I still don't believe it now. And apparently, Box Office Pro is starting to come around to my position. From late last week, the updated long-range box office forecast for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Let's take a look at some of the language that is now being used in the articles, like at Box Office Pro, discussing how they're hedging their bets on their early predictions. Wakanda Forever's overall range has slightly widened as pre-sales for the most recent 7-day period measured fell slightly short of projections, though not enough to be concerned about. While reactions to the recently released second trailer weren't as measurably strong as the original teaser, which soared among the highest of any recent Marvel film, to be fair, it still remains to be seen whether critics' reviews will have a major impact on sales or social sentiment next week, as well as the film's 161-minute length of runtime and continued caution surrounding the tragic reality that this sequel is ultimately without its predecessor's lead star, Chadwick Boseman. Pinpoint forecasts tentatively lean towards the low end of current ranges. Final forecast will be published next week. And just what have those forecasts changed to? Let's take a look. The forecasts have effectively dropped as of late last week, about 10% from initial projections. Now it's down to 170 to 205, not 180 to 225. And no longer is the midpoint 200 million. The midpoint now is around 185, And again, Box Office Pro is leaning towards the lower end of this projection. So at first, when we talked about a potential $200 million opening, well, that seems to be off the table. Box Office Pro is now thinking $170 million is much more likely. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, but Valiant, that's still a hell of a haul. That's a great opening weekend. That's a good run. The movie should still be profitable. And you'd be correct. However, usually when we see the trends moving in this direction, it portends something that's going to be even less than what they're looking at now. Again, as I continue to remind people, this should not be compared to the first Black Panther movie. The first Black Panther movie came out when Marvel's cinematic universe was at its peak in terms of popularity and its earnings potential, all the way across the board, from film to film, with rare to no exception. Black Panther also had a great lead-in, having been introduced in what is still regarded to this day as the best MCU film that ever was, Captain America: Civil War. Black Panther in 2018 also had the advantage of being the direct lead-in to one of the biggest films of all time, Avengers: Infinity War, by just a couple of months. And most importantly, it doesn't have the titular character. There is no Black Panther in this. There is no Chadwick Boseman. It is highly doubtful to me that this film is going to ride anywhere near to the success the first one did, given the fact that it has basically nothing that the first one did. And we've even seen recently people posting pictures online and social media of Black Panther toys on the shelves of places like Target already being marked down by 50%. Because they're simply sitting there and not selling. And this is something that I've covered quite routinely in recent weeks with WDW Pro from thatparkplace.com, where we've talked about some of these toy industry insiders that have sent information to that Park Place suggesting that they have been very nervous about the release of this film because the market that they had built with the first Black Panther movie was probably not going to show up for this one to be those level 2 and level 3 audience engagement folks, meaning the ones that not only just go buy tickets to the movie, but turn around and buy the very profitable, lucrative merchandise and toys. They're sitting there right now. They're not going anywhere, and they're already probably, in some cases, being boxed up to find their way over to Ollie's and Hudson's Discount Treasure Hunt. I suspect that Black Panther is probably going to finish its run somewhere in the neighborhood of around $800 million globally, in between Thor: Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I don't see it breaking out beyond that unless there's some major surprise. Audience reactions to this film would have to be off the scale, or there would have to be probably some other shenanigans going on, which who knows these days? But it just doesn't seem like this movie has any traction regardless of what the media is really putting out there. And I don't think that's going to translate into anything that Disney is going to be terribly happy with at the end of the day. But they might be happy to skate by just breaking even at this point, considering the rest of Marvel's Phase 4. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and a comment below the video before you head out the door today. And until next time, take care.